The canines of Pokemon, dogs, wolves, and even foxes, all of them have been represented within the Pokemon world since the first generation. From the floofy to the sleek, the tiny yappers to the big boofers, they are everywhere! But who was the first one to become man's best friend? To answer this question, I looked through the history of real-life canines that our Pokemon friends are based on and have set up a timeline from the present all the way to the beginning where we find our first furry friend. Howdy there, I'm Krillic, and we have a lot to cover today. To streamline things when it comes to talking about each of these Pokemon, I'm not going to talk about any inspirations besides the dogs that they are based on. For the most part, we do have some exceptions because we don't really get much of a choice. For example, Houndour, Houndoom, Mega Houndoom, they do have some inspirations based off of the Grim Reaper, but they are primarily based off of the Doberman. So, when it comes to talking about that Pokemon, I will not talk about the Grim Reaper or other inspirations, just the Doberman. We'll talk about the history of real-life canines, how the first pup was thought to have been tamed, and then moved back in time throughout the years to find the first canine. Talking first about the canine the Pokemon is based on, and then talking about how that compares to the Pokemon itself. So, let's begin! Also, if you notice that I'm a little scratchier today, I am just now getting over being sick. I am okay. I took plenty of rest time, do not worry. But starting with what makes a dog and a wolf. Because on one hand, we have wolves that live in packs, independent from humans, they hunt, they're self-sufficient, everything. They are strong, brave, powerful. And then you have my dog that farts, and she scares herself running full speed into my arms. Thank you, Odie, who is licking her paws right now. Good job. But even as scientists have looked at our canine companions comparatively to the wolves of the wild, DNA comparisons have proved difficult, to say the least. From Scientific American, I quote, "Analyzing whole genomes of living dogs and wolves, last January's study revealed that today's Fidos are not the descendants of modern grey wolves. Instead, the two species are sister taxa, descended from an unknown ancestor that has since gone extinct. In addition, the location of the first dog domestication is incredibly difficult as well. The times in which it occurred varied by tens of thousands of years, depending on which locations you were looking at, based on all the claims that there were. And it only becomes more difficult as evolutionary biologist Gregor Larson of the University of Oxford states in the same article, "You can't solve this problem by using modern animals alone as windows to the past," Larson says. "The studies of modern dog DNA are not sufficiently informative," he explains, "because people have moved and interbred dogs around the world numerous times, blurring their genetic heritage. Any regional signatures that might have helped identify where they were domesticated has long since been lost." So, in other words, the pup at your side has varied so incredibly different as it's developed over the years from its ancestors that they are basically a new species altogether and cannot actually be traced back to the true origin. Or at least their origin in regards to where they were first domesticated. And even then, that still depends on the species of dog, because some species only date back to the 1900s, some of them only date back to the 1700s, some of them go back to time immemorial. It depends on which dog it is, as humans created new species, which we'll talk about later. One method to help with this, though, is through geometric morphometrics, which quantify certain traits such as the curves of the skull, the thickness of bone, the number of segments within a bone, and so much more. I've actually talked about this in my Ancient Pokemon video. Go check that out if you really like this one by the end of it. And it is incredibly effective as it supplies common and uncommon numbers to physical traits to show how related creatures are to each other. To explain this in a super easy, very generic way, if the most common trait was that a creature had 2 fingers, there'd be 0 points attached to it. If you have 3 fingers, they would supply it with 1 point. And then let's say you had 3 fingers, but one of them was a claw, then maybe you'd get 2 points, and variations continued in that fashion, with numbers or points being attached to them. Scientific American also states, the genus Canis goes back about 7 million years, and although some members of that group, such as jackals and the Ethiopian wolf, lived in Africa, the birthplace of humanity, there is no evidence that the earliest humans tried to domesticate any of these species. Only after modern humans spread out from Africa and into Europe 45,000 years ago did the wolf-dog-human triad begin to form. And you might be wondering, wait, Africa is the birthplace of humanity? For our species of humans, yes. Yes, it went from like, we started in Africa, then went to Europe, then some of us came back to Africa, then some people went to Australia, wandered the coast because there was infinite food hack because seafood, and then it just kind of went from there. So, you know, if you trace country to country, you also find out, okay, this Canis was first discovered in America by Americans, or in this place. Well, this group of people are younger as an entire group, or nationality, or whatever you want to say, than this group. As such, any dogs found here in the younger group are automatically younger than the other ones, assuming they were created by the younger group. So we also may have some very ancient Pokemon here that were not the first to be tamed as well. So again, that goes back to who tamed what first, what or when did this dog get created through breeding. It all is just a step-by-step process to try and figure all of that out. And that just makes all of this so much muddier, because you're going between genetics and domestication. But how did the first canine even become a tamed, domesticated creature? The taming process itself is dependent on the desires of both the human and the creature itself. People tried to tame zebras in old times, and it didn't really work out because zebras didn't want to be tamed. Horses kind of want to be tamed. Dogs wanted to be tamed. Cats, they're technically tamed, but are fairly independent. And the dogs decided that they would work with us in roughly equal parts in a give-and-take lifestyle, allowing themselves to be domesticated fully. This is why they end up being called man's best friend, because we are attached at the hip. There is a perfect give-and-take, assuming both parties are actually good towards each other, and there are benefits given and loyalty. And what makes this more interesting is that the first domestication was not intentional at first. More from Scientific American. We didn't do domestication deliberately, not at first, Lawson surmises. Instead, wolves most likely started following people for the same reason that ants trail into our kitchens, to take advantage of a nutritional resource, our trash. Over time, some of these camp-following wolves increasingly lost their fear of people and vice versa, and a mutually beneficial relationship developed. Wolf dogs would sniff out prey for us, and we would share the resulting meat with them. Circumstantial evidence for this scenario comes from the silver fox experiment. By selecting foxes that were less fearful of humans, the researchers of Novosibirsk eventually developed a silver fox that runs to greet people. Most silver foxes in captivity hide in the back of their cage, and we'll talk about that more later. There is just one problem with this imagined event. At least at P. redmosti, Germnopris, I have not tried to read that before this, I apologize. Early dogs were not eating mammoth meat, even though that is what the humans were dining on. Isotopic analysis of the Paleolithic dog's bones indicates that they were eating reindeer, which was not a favored food of the people who inhabited the site. And without getting graphic, because I don't want to talk about it here, let's just say that ancient humans may have made a few canine orphans on purpose, took those orphans, mistreated and bred them over and over again until they got the obedient dog that they wanted. Though, to lighten things up a bit, the earliest undisputed dog on record, which is freaking huge actually, the fact that it's undisputed, a 14,000-year-old specimen from a site called Bonn Oberkassel in Germany, tells a very different story of dog domestication. evincing a more affectionate bond between humans and canines. In the early 1900s, archaeologists excavating the site found the dog's skeleton interred in a grave with the remains of a man about 50 years old and a woman about 20 to 25. When researchers see such associations, they know they are looking at a fully domesticated animal, one that is treasured and regarded so highly that it is given a burial as if it too were a member of its human family. That brings a tear to my eye. There's a lot of things I want to talk about later, and I'm gonna hold myself together. I have a weak spot for animals in general. I love animals. I was gonna go into environmental stuff anyway, so you can only imagine. And ultimately, we still don't know, and may never precisely know, which dog came first, which dog was first domesticated, so on and so forth. But we could get pretty dang close. And as we compare each of our dog Pokemon going forward, we can compare their real-life species origins to the oldest dog breeds that we are aware of. So, get ready for a timeline of pups from front to back based on what they would have likely, or when they would have likely been domesticated. First up, in 1950, we get Eevee. Because yes, foxes are included as part of canines. Though this one is a bit more cut and dry, and might explain why Eevee and its evolutions are argued between being a fox, a dog, or a cat. Or even a bunny, depending on which ones you look at. Thank you, the Jackalope and Jolteon with your ears. From Bulbapedia, we have, in the 2018 art book EVs, Motofumi Fujiwara revealed that the idea for Eevee came from Satoshi Tajiri's request to have a Pokemon that evolves into multiple types. Fujiwara himself designed Eevee as a blank slate for its various evolutions. As such, while Eevee has traits of foxes, dogs, and cats, it is not based on any specific animal. Fujiwara also envisioned Eevee as a creature that could exist in people's memories, namely vague memories of seeing a cat or dog-like creature that players might have experienced in their childhood. If we really want to get specific, it's a bit close to the red fox, just stouter and fluffier. And according to aces.illinois.edu, we have, for the most part, the animals we've domesticated have been docile for so long that there's no easy way to go back and study the transition from wild to tame. A notable exception is the domestication of red foxes, raised in captivity for their fur, starting in 1896 on Canada's Prince Edward Island. Though, that doesn't fully answer our question, so why don't we dig a little bit more, as it is believed that Dmitry Belyaev, a Russian geneticist, was the first to domesticate the red fox in the 1950s. And while this was possible with foxes, again, remember that this is not the case for every animal. And even if they are domesticated, it does not mean that they are going to be friendly to everything like a dog would be. But given time, maybe that could change, you know, in a couple thousand or tens of thousands of years like we've kind of had for our dog friends. Honestly, pretty easy placement overall. And honestly, again, unfortunately, we can say a lot of the similar things about our other friends, Zora, Zoroark, and their variants. Then you have Nickit and Thievul, so that knocks them out pretty quickly, all putting them into 1950 area, as they are based off of foxes, or red foxes, silver foxes, so on and so forth. Type Null or Silvally, also founded in the 1950s, only based on the fact that Hawaii was like a state officially in like the 1950s, and no other reason whatsoever, because probably Alola exists far into the future. Whatever! So, they're kind of dog-like, but they're more like chimeras. Creatures that have been put together and given life from all the various pieces being put together. Chimeras are freaking sick. Some of them are beautiful, fantastic, insanely cool creatures. Other ones are we also just kind of get stuff like Frankenstein's monster, which is technically a chimera of sorts. Either way, while we are mentioning this Pokemon here, which is also a legendary, which I never really knew, it's considered like semi-legendary or something like that, it is disqualified from the list, despite it being really cool and having like, you know, a little disc that you insert into its head so it can change types. That was the coolest little detail I ever found out about them. Up next, we have Houndour, Houndoom, and Mega Houndoom, technically, in 1870. With this line, it gets a bit odd, as the Doberman was created through a mixture of dogs. I'll just say it now, a huge chunk of this info is coming from American Kennel Club for a lot of my quotes, unless pretty much stated otherwise, but I'll try to keep saying that it's from them. The exact combination of breeds that Doberman used to create his famous guard dog is unknown. Yes, Doberman, the person. However, there are some educated guesses. The old German Shepherd dog, an influence in many European breeds of the period, offered intelligence, biteability, and stamina. The Rottweiler was one of plausible source of the black and tan pattern that became inextricably linked with the Doberman, contributing strength and natural guarding ability. The German Pinscher, the latter word means terrier in German, likely added pluck and speed. And that all-around favorite hunting breed, the Weimaraner, may have provided the scenting ability that's crucial in a working dog. And if we look a little bit further, I know there's a lot of quotes on this, but with what we're working on today, it feels like I just want to be as proper as possible, and I'll keep giving my thoughts and any tangents that come along the way. But a surviving photograph from the 1870s depicts Shoop at Doberman's feet. He was a small, vaguely terrier-sized creature who resembled no recognizable purebred we know today. So, technically, we can date this bad boy back to the 1870s, and it's very clear that they didn't exist without breeding. So, they're clearly not one of the first domesticated dogs, or dog Pokemon. In respect, Houndoom is very much visually based on the Doberman at least, and we do get that very dedicated and strong traits translated over, though there really isn't much else, especially as this Pokemon is given a very underhanded and evil background with the grunts of Team Rocket. It is often used in grunt work in general. I mean, Dobermans in general have always been seen as, like, the guard dog of rich people and given that, like, darker light overall, even though they're not. They're just very incredibly loyal. They're very nice. I wanted a Doberman at one point, though now I have a German Shepherd puppy. He was a stray, so it kind of worked out. I've always thought the Houndoom line is really cool, to say the least, as well. I think they have a very simple design that leads very directly into the Doberman, while some of our other dog Pokemon have a little bit of a shaky origins in terms of what they're based on. And it's always interesting to think that their howls are depicted to be, or thought to be, like the call of the Grim Reaper, which I don't know how bad an actual Doberman howl sounds. Another one in the 1870s, also based off of the Doberman, is Zygarde 10%. No, not your sneaky version, 10% version, okay? And, as clearly stated by Bulbapedia, Zygarde 10% full may be based on the wolf Fenrir. The green leash-like object on its neck could be based on Glepnir, the rope that binds Fenrir. Its left front paw has a different color from the others, being green instead of black, which is possibly a reference to Fenrir biting off the god Tyr's right hand in reprisal for being bound by him. This form could also draw inspiration from Garmer, the watchdog that guards Helheim's gates. In appearance, it resembles a Doberman Pinscher. So I guess if you really want to be technical about it, you could trace it all the way back to the beginning of time, since Zygarde and its origins trace to the beginning of time theoretically. But if we're just talking about the Doberman, which we are, it of course stays right here. But it's also legendary, and it was never actually domesticated, so we have another one disqualified. The Japanese Shisa, or Chinese Komainu, of the Pokemon world, Growlithe and Arcanine. A mix between lion and dog that serve as guardian statues, especially as we look at their Hisuian forms, which definitely make them of the Komainu inspiration. Let's look at Yokai.com for some history on them. Appearance. Komainu are noble, holy animals, usually employed as guardians of sacred sites. They can range in size from a small dog to the size of a lion, and due to their resemblance to both creatures, are often called lion dogs in English. Really, every way to make it sound less cool. They have thick, curly manes and tails, powerful muscly bodies, and sharp teeth and claws. Some Komainu have large horns like a unicorn on their heads. However, many are hornless, which, I mean, we look at their Hisuian forms, it has that beautiful horn. But as time went on, they lost that horn through evolution. Like actual evolution, not Pokemon evolution, which is just metamorphosis, really. deeming it unnecessary as they were tamed and eventually lost their thicker fur. Yokai.com also states the origins as follows. Origin: Koma Inu were brought to Japan via Korea, which in turn received them from China, which in turn received them from India, really playing the telephone game here. China is where they first began to symbolize the Dharmic philosophies of Indian religions. In China, these dogs are called Shishi, which means stone lion. This name is often used in Japan as well, though it only refers to the ones with its mouth open. The other one, and the two of them collectively, are always referred to as Koma Inu. If I also remember correctly, the name also depends on the actual structure, like are they bronze, are they silver, are they made of gold, and that changes their name as well. So let's follow this trend. And as I've said in my myths video, that these Koma Inu were symbolized after lions, which were not even native to China, making them a legend of sorts. But since we want to follow the canine origins, we get the Korean Haechi dog. And let's see if this sounds familiar, as I quote from mysoulbox.com regarding the Jishi. I think that's just pronounced Jishi. It is. That's why you get Shishi. Words translated between languages. Bleh. The Jishi is a legendary creature with Chinese origins that has appeared in myths and legends throughout East Asia. It has a single long horn on its forehead, thick dark fur covering its body, brilliant eyes, and resembles an ox or a goat. It has the natural ability to tell right from wrong and would ram corrupt authorities with its horn before eating them. It is recognized as a justice symbol. Legendary beast, dark fur, horn on the head, strong sense of justice, all checked mark for our lovely Pokemon right here. And the Jishi was adopted by many cultures over the years. Its name changed, but this is the origin. And it made its first appearance in Korea at the beginning of Joseon Dynasty, 1392 to 1910, according to TaraskaDaoMedium.com, which lines up perfectly, or incredibly well, for when this Pokemon would have been tamed, as it was shown as its Hisuian original form in the Edo period from 1603 to 1868. I mean, as long as we excuse the fact of that, you know, the Haechi also have wings. So even though Growlithe and Arcanine don't have a real-life canine that they are based on, we can safely place its species and domestication period. I have researched this floofy boy time and time again, and hopefully this is the last time I will have to, like, research anything and that it's just stuck in my head now. I can't wait till I have to cover all fire Pokemon and somehow I find out even more new information about it. Maybe I'll talk about Volcanic Ash and that. There we go. I already figured it out. Great. Great. Let's talk about some more from the Edo period. Maybe more of the modern era. Kind of hard to place them. Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. And yes, these are really odd because they're considered the legendary dog Pokemon, but they're cats. They're felines. Entei, Raikou, and Suicune were originally designed by Pokemon manga artist Mineo Saito. In interviews about Pokemon Gold and Silver, Saito revealed that the legendary trio was actually inspired by feline cats and not dogs. Specifically, Entei was based on a lion, while Raikou was influenced by a tiger. Suicune's design concept took inspiration from jungle cats such as leopards and panthers. The Gen 2 Johto region Pokemon were also heavily influenced by mythical deities Raiju and Chinese guardian lions. So, cats they are, or even just simply some of the same inspirations, or from the same inspirations as Growlithe and Arcanine, adding a little bit of the Raiju in there for good salting. But otherwise, disqualified. Also, I have no idea, but over the years, I've just learned to love Suicune more and more. There's a reason there's literally Suicune art right there. There we go. I pointed with my finger the right way. Perfect, fantastic, beautiful, amazing. I don't know why. I loved Entei as a kid more, but I don't know. Suicune just has the right vibes, and I don't know why. Electric, Manectric, and Mega Manectric, shockingly enough, pun wasn't originally intended, it is apparently based on wolves, according to some people. They have the minus as an ability, while Mareep have plus as an ability, you know, people or wolves hunting sheep. I tried to find a way to make it like, oh, were they used to shepherd sheep maybe? No, they weren't. They don't even really go by people. They just kind of stick to themselves. But this wasn't good enough for me, because apparently they live in grasslands and savannas, making nests where lightning has struck. Their pointed ears made me think of Belgian shepherds, but that also doesn't work. So ultimately, I had no choice but to relate it back to the Raiju, translate directly to thunderbeast from Japanese mythology. Hello, yokai.com. I'm back. Please never leave me. I kind of need you. You're a really resourceful place for me to look at these yokai with some good accuracy. Appearance. A Raiju is an embodiment of lightning in an animal form. They had long, sharp claws and ferocious faces. Generally, they were thought to look like wolves, dogs, tanuki, or even weasels or cats. Far more fanciful forms existed too. Sometimes Raiju was said to look like little dogs, but with 4 rear legs and 2 tails. Like, why does that remind me of the kitty whippins? They're, displacer beasts in D&D. Why does that, are they based off of Raiju? There's no way. Sometimes they were said to look like insects or crustaceans. Others looked like miniature dragons. Even more exotic Raiju were said to be chimerical monsters composed of many different animals. Origin. Long ago, the Raiju was one of the most well-known and most feared supernatural creatures in Japanese folklore. Yet today, it is relatively minor and practically unknown to the average person, and now we're fixing that today. This drastic reversal is due to advances in science during the 19th and 20th centuries. In the Edo period and earlier, lightning and other natural disasters were believed to be the work of the gods. Only gods had the power to shake the earth and send fire from the sky. Lightning strikes so quickly and so randomly that it is impossible to observe, but it has very observable effects. The terrible booms that shake the ground, the odd bird patterns on things it strikes, and the fires that it ignites. In old Japan, when buildings were all made of wood and closely packed together, a single lightning strike could cause a lot of destruction. The damage caused by lightning was indiscriminate. It destroyed everything from peasant hovels to imperial palaces. Lightning was rightly feared by all. During the Edo period, real quote-unquote Raiju were popular sideshow attractions, along with kappa and mermaids. Mummified and taxidermied remains of cats, monkeys, and dogs were presented as Raiju and toured around the country in traveling shows. Viewers could pay a few coins to get a safe, up-close look at a dead Raiju in a glass case. And honestly, there isn't a lot of behavioral data on electromagnetic, again, other than it just appears rarely in front of people, so there's not a lot of comparisons I can make here, other than that rarity of lightning, striking, and appearing, and so on and so forth. We can at least relate it back to the Edo period through the Raiju. Felt dirty at first, but I mean, we literally just did that with Growlithe and Arcanine, so, you know. Also, I kind of feel bad because I don't really care about this Pokemon. It never truly, like, stuck with me. Never really sat with me. I never really cared for its design all that much, and it is what it is. You know, I'm not supposed to like every Pokemon. I respect all the Pokemon and their designs and the stuff behind them. I think everything, like, that all Pokemon are based off of are really cool in concept and how they're brought together, but just didn't care for this one. I used to kind of say the same thing for Weasel and its evolution until I saw it moving around in Pokemon Legends Arceus, which it was really cute in doing that, so, you know, made me love the Water Weasel a little bit more. So there's room for this Pokemon to gain a place in my heart one day. Inspired by Poodles and Afghan Hounds, in the 1600s, we have Furfru. And according to Powder Valley Poodles and the history that they state, the Puddle, as it once was known, was a medium to large dog in height, lightweight, and extremely athletic. The breed was developed to retrieve waterfowl from very cold water, the long hanging cords of hair enabling the dog to shed water more efficiently, drying off much more quickly than their flat-coated cousins. This breed of dog, now so cherished as a companion animal, and thought of by many as being ethereal and foo-foo, was actually a dog that only very manly men would own, as poodles were the best at retrieving in icy cold temperatures. Temperatures that many sportsmen didn't want to deal with. That doesn't sound very manly. It's like, I guess there's manly and then there's common sense, but still, like, if you're gonna say you're manly and you're really gonna spout that you're manly, walk into the cold water, freeze, show that you can survive. I would. I don't condone anybody else doing that. I've done a lot of stupid stuff, but I only do stupid things that I know I can survive and handle. Professional. Eventually, because of the dog's jovial nature and good temperament with children, the sporting poodle became a popular house dog. The breed eventually found its way to England, and the British, fascinated by the dog's personality and potential, started getting a little carried away with the clippers, in that person's humble opinion. So the clippers make sense. I mean, that lines up perfectly with furfur, but where do they all originate from before we get into furfur a little bit more? Dr. Bill's Pet Nutrition had a spotlight on these hairy, not furry, hairy friends, stating, most historians agree that the poodle originated in Germany as a duck hunter dog in the 15th century, a breed often referred to as Canines, meaning duck dog. These canines later evolved into its own distinct breed in France. From here, the standard poodle began its development as a retrieving water dog in the 1600s. Due to their showy looks and trainability, poodles were found favorable among the nobles of France and eventually all of Europe. And of course, I'm not going to ignore the Afghan hound origins potential of it, but even as we look at that, while there are theories of it being thousands of years old, originating from Egypt, there's no, like, substantial evidence for that. So prove it really scientifically, historically, but a couple of different sources do claim the following. While their actual age is uncertain, the Afghan is thought to have been mentioned and depicted in art as far back as 4,000 years ago. In legend, the Afghan hound was the dog rescued from the Great Flood on Noah's Ark. Afghans are also referred to as the king of dogs due to their elegant manner and majestic coats, according to Noah's Ark Companion Hospital, and even American Kennel Club kind of mentions it. Historical accuracy aside, what the tale of the Afghan hound aboard Noah's Ark does communicate to us is in no uncertain terms is just how ancient this traditional hunter of gazelle and snow leopard is. A dog hunting gazelle, whatever, fine, so be it, you know. Snow leopard, I'm sorry, usually cats are always top dog in, like, any circle, because if you hunt a cat, you better actually finish it off, or it will finish you off. Though, despite that serious nature and ability to hunt, it's a bit of goofy guy. Among the most eye-catching of all dog breeds, the Afghan hound is an aloof and dignified aristocrat of sublime beauty. Despite his regal appearance, the Afghan can exhibit an endearing streak of silliness and a profound loyalty. Since ancient times, Afghan hounds have been famous for their elegant beauty. With a thick, silky, flowing coat that is the breed's crowning glory isn't just for show. It served as protection from the harsh climate in mountainous regions where Afghans originally earned their keep. Beneath the Afghan's glamorous exterior is a powerful, agile hound, standing as high as 27 inches at the shoulder, built for a long day's hunt. Their huge paw pads acted as shock absorbers on their homeland's punishing terrain. The Afghan hound is a special breed for special people. A breed expert writes, "It's not the breed for all would-be dog owners, but where the dog and owner combination is right. No animal can equal the Afghan hound as a pet." Say what you want. Whatever. That's pretentious. It's a little bit pretentious. But I get it. You know, there are right dogs, right cats, right, you know, pets in general, companions for the right people. I am very energetic. I have a lot of energy. I can be very, like, over the top and dramatic and everything. I have Odie. Odie is adorable. She sleeps all day. She's a chihuahua. She's a fat chihuahua. And she likes love. She likes cuddles. Fantastic. But I'm not a small dog person. Recently, we got Jaeger. Jaeger is a German Shepherd. He's energetic. When he doesn't want to do what you want him to do, he will stare you dead in the eyes and walk away. Or he will put both of his paws in front of him and then lay down on them if he doesn't want to follow you anymore. He is overdramatic. He's incredibly intelligent, and he has so much energy. We call him Wiggles because every single time we see him and he's happy, which is literally anytime he comes around the corner and sees us, even though he was just following us, he will wiggle his entire body while walking. It's adorable. And it's nice to, you know, I love Odie. Jaeger is very much like a dog that fits my personality and how I act. So, there are more befitting companions depending on your lifestyle and personality, without it sounding super pretentious. But let's get back to Furfrou, and since we're gonna stick to it being based off of a poodle, we're going to stick to the 1600s label on it. Furfrou itself didn't really make much of an impression on me, even when I played through Pokemon X and Y myself. But, you know, I did enjoy the game. And I do love all the different styles that we do get of Furfrou, which really exemplifies the whole poodle aspect of it all. Matching how groomed the poodles are, or rather Furfrou is, how elegant Furfrou is seen, and how they even used to be designated guardians of the king in Kalos. It goes even further to say that the swiftness of its movements make it more elegant, making it very much sound like a show dog that poodles are and you see all the time in shows. Nothing against them, it's just they're there all the time. I think I've interacted with like 3 poodles in my entire life, and they're so soft. They're so nice. And also way bigger than I ever expected. Like, way bigger when I first met them. In the 1400s, we get Fido and Dachshund. If it wasn't obvious from the evolution, they're based off of the Dachshund, and more specifically, a purebred one. Get it? Because it's purebred. It's yeast. I will kill this joke. I will drive it into the ground. I will make sure a horse is dead and beat it with another dead horse, as the saying goes. According to All Texas Dachshund Rescue, however, the first official historical records of the modern dachshund are from the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries in European illustrations depicting badgers being hunted by long, short dogs with flappy ears, and in books referring to Toxkrieger, badger crawler, or Toxkrieger, badger warrior. And, back to AKC, don't let the goofy wiener dog costume fool you. Sandwiched between these fabric hot dog buns is a clever hunter whose size belies its ferocity. At first glance, you can see why the dachshund has earned the rather ignoble moniker of wiener or sausage dog. Long and low to the ground, this oddly portioned hound might look comically cute, but its name, which in German translates as badger dog, tells a completely different story. While Europeans had been using dogs to hunt those nocturnal, ground-burrowing carnivores since at least the Middle Ages, it wasn't until the late 17th century that the dachshund began to take form. While France and other European countries had their own versions of badger hunting dogs, by the 18th century, German foresters and hunters began to breed their type consistently, paving the way for the breed we know today. And being a Wisconsinite, this just makes me want to go to a local museum and just re-up my badger and mining knowledge so I can get a clearer first-hand picture of Dachshund potentially being used to go. That would actually be amazing! It just all clicked. Ooh. Okay. Follow me on this. Dachshund, it can breathe yeast, right? At least we know that we know it's pre-evolution. Pre-evolution can, right? And they can breathe yeast, right? You take yeast, turn it into bread, so on and so forth, and you continue going from there. Easy. You just need what? Water and heat, and you can consistently keep making bread. Well, with enough portable technology, which they might have had at some point, or still have, as mining is still being done in some parts of the Pokemon world, all you have to do is bring one of these Pokemon along, probably a Dachshund, just in case you run into a scarier Pokemon, and not only is it going to be good at going up against any badgers, which, hold on, follow me further, we're gonna get a region where we're gonna see, oh no we won't, because Galarian Zigzagoon is only in, but it's not a badger, it's a raccoon, right? Yeah, Galarian Zigzagoon, moreover, Obstagoon is kind of a badger Pokemon in some capacity, which, it's a dark type, and I mean, you know, we have Dachshund, which is a pure fairy type. It would theoretically work if it wasn't just a Galarian form. It is the original form, though, so maybe we will see it in other areas. So, Dachshund would be perfect for hunting down these Pokemon if they were being a problem in the mines, and providing food to miners digging through their mine shafts. I got overly excited, and that makes me really happy because in between takes here, I've been coughing up a storm and drinking tea. I really want to get this recorded. That's why I'm pushing. I'm going to rest plenty after this, or at least rest my throat, because, oh boy, I am chugging tea and water. And also, lucky me, by the time that you are seeing this, I will be in some caves myself. That's not supposed to sound dirty at all. I am just taking a little break on the weekend, 2 days away. Girlfriend and I, we're going to go see some caves. We're going to go to a cool location that I'll talk about after I've been there. And just relax overall. And bless her soul, pray for her, because I wanted to minor in geology. So I'm probably going to geek out a lot, and she's going to have to listen to that. But she's ready for it. Back to Fido and Dachshund, though, it would genuinely be weird if we didn't find it earlier in history, considering Doe itself has existed for so long. And if we do look at Fido's information, Fido's smooth, moist skin is firm yet soft to the touch and has elastic qualities. I just want to squish its face now, oh my goodness. When agitated, Fido will puff itself up to appear larger in an attempt to intimidate its opponents. Fido's breath contains yeast and is used to ferment things. Fido has long been considered a companion of humanity because its yeast is useful for cooking. And when we look at Dachshund itself, it states, Dachshund's body emanates a pleasant, appetizing aroma. Oh no, don't do that to me. Don't give me another Pokemon that is appetizing to smell and then potentially eat. Which helps wheat to grow. Thus, Dachshund is historically treasured by farming villages. When it's exposed to intense heat, Dachshund's skin will harden. This is showcased by its signature ability, Well-Baked Body. So, well, how far back does wheat go? I read this and went over this stuff, but now my brain is, okay, how far back does wheat farming go? Oh boy, Middle Ages? Place your guess. Wheat has been cultivated, according to Sustainable Food Trust, for more than 10,000 years, beginning in the Fertile Crescent and arriving in the UK around 5,000 years ago. So, when did it hit Spain, though? Because that's the next part. Because that's what this region is based off of, that Fido and Dachshund are from. So there's claims that it came from around 5000 BC. Now, what this all does is tells us that at least this Pokemon has existed or potentially existed 5000 BC. I don't know how that works in a Pokemon world. You can't say it's BA because Arceus is God. Mew? Would it be BM? No, because that'd be bowel movements. Either way, this doesn't mean that it was domesticated, which is the whole question here. What was the first domesticated, dog Pokemon, canine Pokemon, whatever? And so we can gravitate towards the stated year that it was, that I had stated already, in terms of its domestication. But Fido and Dachshund may have been around since, 5000 BC, whatever that would be in the Pokemon world. Fido and Dachshund definitely go up there in terms of, top dogs in Pokemon. And I might be a little bit biased because I love to eat food and lots of it. So it would be really cool, especially as it's been brought to my attention recently, of having, a team comprised of, Pokemon that are good to help with cooking. Now, before we continue, thank you so much for watching so far. If you'd like to support deep research like this, go the extra mile, you can become a member here on YouTube or Patreon. If you become a member on YouTube, you do get to see videos early. Patreon, not so much because my videos are far too long for me to continuously upload them to Patreon. In addition, I do want to let people know here, I am doing a Pokemon D&D one-shot with a group of people that I have not revealed just yet, but it is going to be taking place 10 years after the events of the anime in Alola. And I'm very excited for it. I have the basic plot of it all together. All I can say from here, though, is that if that does well and you really want to hear an original story that expands upon that world, watch the one-shot when it comes out. It's planned for the end of this month to be recorded. I will keep updating people on it, and if it does well enough, I can make it a full series. I'm, again, super excited. I love D&D, I love Pokemon, and I found a way to seamlessly put them together, and make more of it. If you want to see what that looks like, I did stream learning D&D Pokemon at one point, so you can always go check that out, but again, it is a full stream, and me going through all of the books that I'll be using. Snubbull and Granbull in 1210. Based on bulldogs, which are often associated with determination, strength, and courage. All of these things Snubbull and Granbull are not, considering they are known to be cowardly and get sad when anyone gets scared because of their looks if they scare them unintentionally. According to American Kennel Club, again, the bulldog reportedly received its bullish moniker from the breed's use in medieval sports of bull baiting. A bull, or bear, lending the custom the name bear baiting, would be tied or chained to a stake and would have to fight a dog, presumably a bulldog. So they would chain the big old scary animal to a stake, and then they'd send in a bulldog and be like, alright, kill it, because that's humane. In the 1938 Blue Book of Bulldogs, William Lawlor wrote that the bulldog could be traced to 1210, the year of the first official bull baiting in England. He added that the bulldog is generally believed to have come down from the same common stock, developed for that sport. That meant these dogs had to be tough enough to face down a mighty bovine. However, as the centuries progressed, the sport came under fire. Bull baiting was banned in 1835. Yay. Annette Nobles, president of Division 8 of the Bulldog Club of America, which covers Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, says the end of the blood sport of bull baiting left the bulldog breed with no job or purpose. Nobles note that at that time the breed was considered to be savage. Its owners also came from the lower classes. However, she adds, the introduction of formal dog shows in 1859 saved the breed from extinction. The breed as we know it today evolved from the last survivors prior to that time. So, if they hadn't been introduced to formal dog shows, we would not have bulldogs to this day because they would not be bred anymore. Every dog, every animal that we breed or repetitively breed are bred for a purpose. Even teacup poodles are bred for what purpose? To fit into little teacups or into little bags to look cute, because that isn't a physical deformity in the slightest. No, of course it isn't. Or you look at other animals, other dogs, Chihuahuas, which we're not even really going to talk about today, so I'll talk about it because I looked it up a couple weeks ago, were like, goes all the way back to South America, and they were even like seen as a sort of connection to the deities in some capacity, which is insane to me considering my Chihuahua is still sleeping on the bed adorably right next to me, which is great, but like her ancestors ran around in the desert hunting down mice and rats and everything like that, and just were a little bit more braver than this one, at least. Back to Snubbull and Granbull, though. Now, they do serve as a guard in this world. They can often be seen with wild encounters nearby daycares or by farms because they are protecting those areas. They are protecting the daycares from Sneasel that are going to try and eat the eggs, or they are protecting the farms and the bulls that are there, or telling them to go back, scaring them away, having the bravery to send them away, which really adds into their whole, like, real-life inspiration backstory. Outside of that, they're really just beloved by women in the Pokemon world, is what they state, and that kind of ties back to the whole idea of being in Pokemon contests, or rather, my goodness, I said Pokemon instead of dog contests, even though, again, I know it's not just for women or just for men, it's a mixture, but it does play into that. I don't really care for Snubbull or Granbull. Also, Snubbull's, like, dress is its skin, which is, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It's like Roggenrolla's hole in its face is its ear hole. I don't like it. Welcome to the year 1000, where we have another legendary Okidogi. Very much based on the Shiba Inu, but more specifically its bulkier relative, the Japanese Akita. The similarity is further pronounced with its shiny variant and its association with Kitakami, which draws inspiration from the real-life Tohoku region of Japan, which contains the Akita prefecture. Thank you, Bulbapedia. Many people are familiar with the Akita's cousins, Huskies, Malamutes, Chow Chows, Norwegian Elkhounds, and others. But few know much about the breed that is Japan's natural monument. The Akita is a member of the Spitz group, which includes many northern snow breeds. The noble Akita goes back at least 1,000 years as a human companion and helper. Originally, the Akita's regional ancestors, called Mataginu, were medium-sized land race dogs bred to serve as hunting companions. All of their original wolf skills, from finding prey all the way through killing it, were considered desirable traits in those days, because hunting was done with bow and arrow and the prey large and fierce. The Akita Mataginu were prized because they were fearless in their tracking and holding of bear and wild boar, and they were extremely loyal to their owners. These traits are still true today. What today's pet owners sometimes call stubbornness was then viewed as persistence and fearlessness, both very important qualities. You know, that makes me think of my boy Jaeger over here, who literally just walked past me and sat to look out the window into the backyard. And yeah, he can be really stubborn. Yeah, he's German Shepherd. He's not Akita or anything like that. But that's actually a really good point to, like, when you're faced with a roadblock, when you're faced with something that's stopping you or trying to stop you, having that persistence, that stubbornness is what helps them push forward. And if you break that of them, then you're breaking a part of their character that is meant to be there to assist you and keep them alive in anything that might happen to them. But at the same time, their persistence and stubbornness needs to stop if they're going to try and just eat every little thing on the floor, and that's not healthy for them. Back to the quote. During Japan's medieval era, these regional hunting dogs remained largely unchanged in character, but soon after, during the Tokugawa Shogun era, their job changed. While rural villagers in the Tohoku area still hunted with their Mataginu, the nobility and upper classes began breeding their dogs larger to be more imposing as guardians of people and property. The original traits of loyalty and fearlessness were again invaluable, because to do these jobs, the dogs had to think for themselves, where other breeds were needed to perform specific tasks, point, flush, retrieve. The Akita's ancestors were expected to be persistent in the pursuit of prey and self-directed in guarding their territory. Another function that the local dogs served was in dogfighting. For approximately 300 years, the Akita hunting dogs and the Akita fighting dogs coexisted, with the fighting dogs being mixed with an assortment of Western breeds for an even larger size during the Meiji era, 1868 to 1912, and Taisho era, 1912 to 1926. All of this is very, very fitting outside of what we've already mentioned for Okidogi, but also because Okidogi was given the mochi to enhance its physical body. It is a fighting type. Its location and the statue that it has that looks like the prefecture it's from. And to streamline what I know would be a jumbled mess otherwise, and I'd be jumping all over the place, I can to quote from Bulbapedia again. Mythical Pokemon Petrons in need of retainers in its journey to Kitakami used its binding mochi and toxic chain to tame and transform Okidogi. This resulted in the toxic chain being wrapped around its neck, chaining Okidogi to Petron's will. Okidogi transformed as the chain enhanced its abilities or capabilities, granting it a powerful physique by stimulating its muscles heavily. The toxic chain, when thrown, is powerful enough to let Okidogi pulverize anything it hits. It is a ruffian with a short temper. So compare that to the story of the Akita and the fighting dogs and everything else, the forming of this more muscled dog through breeding to reach these traits, to become independent, to become powerful, to become loyal. And now you just take all of that, compress it, speed it up, and just have it happen through one transformation because you fed it a bit of mochi. And now it has the binding chain to it, making it perfectly loyal to Petulant and nobody else. All of these things being incredibly valuable to people of that era, and Pecharunt is from these types of eras. It lines up incredibly well. Okidog is a big old goofball in my eyes. Honestly, all three of them are Pecharunt. Honestly, I would love to see, they do those Poke-Tunes, right? I would love to see a Poke-Tune where it's Tom and Jerry style, and Pecharunt is the leader of, you know, the three, as you would expect, but they're all incredibly incompetent, almost like Mojo and Curly style, and you just have Munkidori be the smart one, Pheasantipity being very vain, and Okidogi just being a big brute, which I think they're all very independent and potentially very smart, especially Munkidori. That's the whole purpose of Munkidori and the enhancements that happen to them. But just make it a big old goofy cartoon. And they don't even have to be going after or fighting the lovely Ogerpon or anything like that. Just let it be a weird little adventure. There's plenty of adventures I'm sure they had. Hello, Future Curlic is here because he realized he made a mistake as he was going through the script and everything, and he forgot 3 entire canine Pokemon and somehow didn't mention Vulpix at all. So, you're going to see me dressed differently, looking a little different than the other clips. Just be prepared for that. Also, Vulpix, Red Fox, done and over with. But can you guess who I forgot? Somehow, even though I went through every single generation piece by piece just to make sure I didn't make a mistake like this, and I'm going to blame Sick Me for making that mistake. First up, I forgot Yamper. Yamper, the Corgi Pokemon. You know, just the one with the cutest butt in all of Pokemon, because it's got a little heart on it, and I forgot it somehow. So you get to go with me through this as I just read it live, because I haven't pre-read it other than looking at the reputable sources that I've looked at before. So, with Corgis, sitting in the 10th century, both the Pembroke and Cardigan Welsh Corgi are ancient breeds, possibly dating back to the 10th century, 900s, though many believe the Cardigan to be older than the Pembroke, which began to disappear from Welsh farms by the early 1900s. It's thought to have been an enchanted breed for many reasons. This happy herder with the elfish smile captures the hearts of fanciers and pet owners worldwide. Originally an all-purpose barnyard dog, the Pembroke was once invaluable to farmers in Wales. The perky four-legged farmhands escorted cows to common grazing land, watching over them and making sure they were back home in time for milking. Other tasks the Pembroke happily performed included rodent control, guarding over livestock, and protecting the human family. Basically, they would do any task that didn't require legs longer than 12 inches because they're short little monsters. Again, I'm only calling it a monster right now because I'm still sick and I really didn't want to record this, but I know I have to for the sake of science! So what's also interesting is that the Pembroke is a member of the Spitz family, the Nordic group of dogs distinguished by a sharp, pointed muzzle, foxy face, erect and pointed ears, and a high-set, gaily carried tail. And you're going to hear the Spitz family a lot because they're one of the most ancient breeds, which is very interesting, and the reason why we are not going to talk about Bolton right now. Which we're not going to talk about Bolton right now because technically Bolton would be older if we really, really want to do our legwork on this. I mean, Yamper's pretty easy to compare to this due to the fact that when you look at Yamper, it's happy, has a smile all the time, it's a yipper, yapper, yomper, and what it's gonna do is what does it do? It herds Wooloo. It protects the Wooloo. It's a herding dog. Perfect little Corgi dog. I didn't even realize Corgis were herding dogs. I feel like I should know that, but like, so many of these dogs have done jobs that I would not have expected them to do because I expect them to just be cute, small, and have fun, not like do a job. But there are a lot of dogs that need a job to feel fulfilled and enrichment. It's good for them. Okay, here's a weird one. I am placing it in the year 843 as the latest year that it could have happened, or the earliest year that it could have happened. Railu Lucario, Mega Lucario, and it's primarily because of Mega Lucario, because it was found in Kalos, which is France, and was thought to be the first Mega, and so Rayquaza decided to flex its abilities and become a Mega, and the ancient Draconians were like, yo, check it out. Now, again, it is a bit of a stretch, but it would also be really cool if Legend ZA kind of pops up, hands us a Mega Lucario right off the bat, and lets us experience the world as we are the first person to bring Mega Evolution to the people, making us that legendary person. That'd be really cool. That'd be really cool, I think. I'd be amazed because, I mean, CA is like the founding of Lumio City. That's the whole purpose of it. But I digress. This Pokemon is based on the African golden wolf, which is closely related to the gray wolf and the coyote, though Lucario does have Egyptian boxer traits. And no, not the dog, like actual Egyptian, you know, boxers, which threw me off. And I may have gone, you know, through a whole line of research looking at boxers like the dog, and I was like, oh, okay, I could kind of see it. And I'm like, none of this lines up. None of this lines up. Only to realize I literally misread it as Egyptian boxer, thinking boxer dog, not Egyptian boxer punchy. Whatever. But when fighting, African golden wolves slam their opponents with their hips and bite and shake the shoulder. Their vocalizations are similar to those of the domestic dog, with 7 sounds having been recorded, including howls, barks, growls, whines, and cackles. Thank you, animals.bio. And I mean, Lucario is pretty vocal when it fights. I mean, have you seen the clips? And this animal was never actually domesticated, to my knowledge, meaning Lucario is also disqualified from this list. Here is another really, really weird one. So you'll have to follow me on this because I don't have a specific year, but no, it is one of the oldest. The future ones still have years. The Lillipup Herdier Stoutland line. Nice and easy here, we literally just have the Yorkshire Terrier of Pokemon, though I could not actually, again, place a relative date on this, because when we reach Stoutland, we do get some Shih Tzu, Maltese, and Scottish Terriers for its physical design, and I will add in something important. Stoutland prefers the cold, feeling very uncomfortable whenever they are seen in a lulla. And because of this, and a couple of its other traits, and its just sheer size, physical capabilities, and so much more, I am willing to argue another possibility for its origins, due to all of that. The Tibetan Terrier. The first official Tibetan Terrier was brought to the US in 1956. The breed name gets it only half right. Tibetan Terriers are Tibetan, but they're not true terriers. Not by blood, temperament, or job description. Westerners carelessly hung the name terrier on this typically Asian dog, and it stuck. An ancient breed developed in the splendid isolation of the Lost Valley, Tibetan Terriers are among several Tibetan dogs associated with Buddhist monasteries and the Dalai Lama. Tibetan Terriers are best known as companions and watchdogs, but during their long history, they've worked as herders and flock guardians. They are even stated to be able to withstand extreme cold while still being agile on snow and ice, hence the Tibet parts. So while this might be a little bit of a stretch, just a tiny bit of one, I feel like it's due. And I would absolutely mark down the Stoutland line, or again, more specifically Stoutland over the other two, as one of the oldest dog species, as its real-life inspiration is one of the oldest dog breeds, I argue. It is also important to note that I stated the first official Tibetan Terrier was documented in the US in 1956, but a few sources state that the first litter was around 1924, or even another source claiming that in 1854 they existed in general, and then you get the claim that they were bred in monasteries by the Dalai Lamas over 2,000 years ago, so it's all a mess, as one would expect. It's an old, ancient breed, right? So, the only thing for certainty, oh my goodness, is this. It is one of the oldest dog Pokemon here that was domesticated. Stoutland has an intelligent, good-natured, valiant, and trustworthy disposition. Being a partner of choice for many, its fur is thick enough to protect itself and others against freezing temperatures. Due to this, every household in cold regions kept a Stoutland for warmth in the past. Stoutland is known to rescue humans that are either stranded in the mountains or at sea. It's known to be very proud of its impressive mustache, the reason being due to its length determining Stoutland's social status among its species. Year 100. Another fairly straightforward one, as we have Mastiff and Mastiff, which are based on the Spanish Mastiff, the ones you'd really expect to boof. The Spanish Mastiff is a very intelligent dog, not without beauty, whose expression manifests both these qualities. rustic, affectionate, kind, and noble. He is very determined when facing dangerous animals and in front of strangers, especially when he has the opportunity to defend and protect farms or cattle. In his behavior, one can see it is a dog sure of himself, determining his strength because he is aware of his enormous power. The Spanish Mastiff is a dog of great size, well-balanced, very powerful, and muscular. He has a massive head and a body covered with a medium-length coat. His bark is raucous, low-pitched, and deep, very sonorous and audible from a considerable distance. The Spanish Mastiff comes in a range of coat colors, including black, fawn, red, gray, and yellow, and can be seen with brindle or white markings. Used for guarding and defense, the breed is closely related to the seasonal moving of livestock, especially the merino livestock, which he accompanied at the time of the Mesta. In the Middle Ages, this was an association of sheep ranchers who journeyed seasonally to distinct locations to find grazing pastures. The Spanish Mastiff was in charge of defending them against wolves and other predators throughout their travels. Either sedentary or wandering, he performs in the same way for farms, people, and properties in general. So just imagine our big, fat-headed, no-neck Mastiff out here looking at a wolf and just chomping it down because it decided to mess with the wrong family. Now, I wanted to look again to try and figure out, okay, how did you place the date of this? I looked at Jane Dogs, which states, the first historical reference to the livestock guardian dog of Spain dates back to before 100 AD and comes from a contemporary of Jesus. Basically, it said, I don't know why I went southern, the Spanish Mastiff had to be drop-eared, had a body longer than height at withers, a wide chest and big legs and feet covered with thick hair. He was athletic enough to chase wolves and bears when they flee, but heavy enough to fight them if necessary. He was alert enough to frighten either an animal or human thief, but discreet enough not to frighten the family of the Mesta or shepherd in charge of the flock. He was one of dark color, so that he was a formidable sight during the day, but did not stand out at night. All of this lining up incredibly well with what we know so far for both of these Pokemon. Oh my goodness, I did it again. Pokemon. One of them's a real-life dog, Krillic. But information on Mastiff does state, Mastiff's head is large with no descendable neck and contains small orange beady eyes. Light gray eyebrows, additional light gray accents under its eyes, a rounded, triangulated orange nose, and a mouth filled with sharp teeth. Mastiff has a large dewlap below its mouth, which allows it to store energy to drive back opponents. Mastiff has a gentle temperament and loves playing with children. However, it will bare its teeth and take on an intimidating look when protecting its family. Very fitting. But you might be wondering, well, how strong is a Mastiff's jaws? Well, the Mastiff is another large breed of dog that is known for its strength and power, with a bite force of 556 psi. This breed can easily overpower other animals. This is more than 3 times the bite force of an average dog, according to Country Living and some additional sources. 556 pounds per square inch. Meaning it would be able to easily break a number of bones in your body. Not all of them, but a number of them. We'll say, though, your arm can handle about 100 pounds per square inch. Your arm is gone. Future Krillic is back again, as I have a Pokemon that was between 400 BC and 280 between Greece and ancient Britain, the Beagle Pokemon Smeargle. The origin of the Beagle is obscure without documentation as to early development. References, oh my goodness, to small Beagle-type dogs which hunted hare and were allowed or followed on foot date back to 400 BC in Greece and 200 AD in ancient Britain. Not only is the Beagle an excellent hunting dog and loyal companion, it is also happy-go-lucky, funny, and thanks to its pleading expression, cute. They were bred to hunt in packs, so they enjoy company and are generally easygoing. There are 2 Beagle varieties, those standing under 13 inches at the shoulder, and those standing between 13 and 15 inches. Both varieties are sturdy, solid, and big for their inches, as dog folks say. I will never say that if I ever have a Beagle myself. They come in such pleasing colors such as lemon, red, and white, and tricolor. The Beagle's fortune is in its adorable face, with its big brown or hazel eyes set off by long houndy ears set low on a broad head. A breed described as merry by its fanciers, Beagles are lovable and loving, happy and companionable, all qualities that make them excellent family dogs. No wonder that for years the Beagle has been the most popular hound dog among American pet owners. These are curious, clever, and energetic hounds who require plenty of playtime. When we look at Smeargle, you probably sit down and like, that's a Beagle? That's supposed to be a Beagle? Yeah, you can kind of see. It doesn't really have the pleading expression. It kind of has the droopy ears, but it has nothing else to do with Beagles in general. Their behavior, they just kind of stick to themselves. I mean, yeah, they're like other Smeargle, but, and they're like, that makes sense as they do move in packs. But even if I looked at, you know, when I looked at everything for the ecosystem, for Johto, they don't hunt. They don't hunt. They just paint and put paw prints on each other's back when they reach maturity. They are nothing like a regular dog other than the fact that they don't even stand on 4 legs. They're bipedal. I mean, Subble is too, but, you know, at least that looks like a dog. Look, no disrespect to Smeargle. I think it deserves more love. But it definitely gets lamed out quite a bit. And it's definitely just barely a dog in my eyes. We're really digging into the absolute end of this as we have Grievard and Houndstone, which has a kind of range between 625 BC to 476 AD, with the Iberian Catalan Sheepdog as its primary inspiration for this undead dog. Wisdom panel states, the Catalan Sheepdog is an alert, courageous working dog and a loyal, affectionate family pet. Add to that the breed's cheerful attitude, adorable facial hair, and friendly smile, and it's easy to see why these dogs are growing in popularity. I mean, look how often the Pokemon smiles. It kind of makes sense already. As the name implies, the Catalan Sheepdog, also known as Perro de Pastor Catalan or Gos de Altura Català, hails from northeast Spain in Catalonia. Stories suggest the breed came about when Romans brought their dogs to Spain and crossed them with native Catalan dogs. The resulting dogs worked with shepherds, helping guard and herd their livestock. Unique and still relatively rare, Catalan sheepdogs worked in the Spanish Civil War as messengers and sentry dogs. Their popularity fell after World War II, but selective breeding programs in the 1970s helped the breed recover. Today, Catalan sheepdogs are popular in their native Spain, and their numbers continue to grow in Germany, Sweden, and Finland. And of course, this Pokemon is affectionate to a fault, as it's going to accidentally steal your life force from you by just being around you, despite it loving you as much as it does. And visually, it makes perfect sense how they line up. The long hair covering the eyes, drooping over their body, it all matches. Honestly, it just wants to be best friends with you forever, even in the afterlife. Though, Grievard usually rests underground, with the candle-like part of its head left uncovered as it waits for people to come by. If it is approached, it jumps out of the ground and lets a spooky cry that may unintentionally startle most people. Grievard is friendly, affectionate, and easily gets lonely. It's really easy to befriend and will forever follow anyone who gives it the slightest of attention. However, it is advised not to play with Grievard often, as it is known to slowly and unwittingly drain the life force of those near it. It is rumored that Grievard is a reincarnation of a dog Pokemon that had never interacted with a human and died in the wild. Grievard primarily lives in Boreal Mountains, so those very, very cold, usually I believe it's below 40 or below 30 freezing temperatures year-round. Let's just put it that way. And the way that it evolves, even though it's said to be through level, is actually through just love, care, and affection. The love actually reforming it to some capacity and giving it new life, which is horribly adorable. And I say horribly adorable and horrifying because that means you have to be around Grievard long enough for Houndstone to come in existence, meaning that your life force is being drained away consistently as you give your love to this Pokemon. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm doing this off the noggin. I could have sworn I saw a post that somewhere stating that Togekiss pretty much gives, or gains energy and life force simply from being around people who are happy and cheerful. And with this Pokemon being so happy and cheerful all the time, but still stealing life force, you can have an infinite energy machine kind of going on. Our Togepi is happy, Graveyard is happy, Graveyard feeds on Togekiss's life force, Togepi leaves or feeds on Graveyard's happiness, and it just keeps going until both of them evolve. I feel like that would work. Why not? More legendaries, and technically more Pokemon that don't count, Zacian and Zamazenta. But there is a chance that they are at least based on the Greek mythological dog, Laelaps, which was a hunting hound. Now, Laelaps was a special dog. He was so special because the Greek gods created Laelaps, giving him a special power. They gave Laelaps, I should always pronounce Laelaps, the ability to always be able to catch its prey. Laelaps hunted and killed, always catching what it hunted, never once missing a kill. Beautiful for the dog and its dreams, and all the times you see your dog and maybe they're moving their legs in their sleep as they dream and about hunting or running after a squirrel or a bunny or whatever it is, terrifying for its prey. And of course, I mean, they're both wolves. They're both very wild still. They serve themselves, they serve the lands, so on and so forth. They have the wolf howl. You hear it, and it's eerie, and I love it. But ultimately, they're not domesticated. They're not actually tamed. They serve themselves and, you know, what they know. They are loyal to the country. Felt like that's a very nationalist thing to say. Moving on. I'm here for one last time as we have a contender for what might be the oldest Pokemon, Dog Domesticated. Wow, that was a bad slurry of words, but I'm keeping that in. But I don't think Bolton specifically is gonna fit here, because it seems a little too modern. But at least its ancestor dog Pokemon in the real world, the Greyhound, might be a contender. From Fast Friend's Greyhound adoption, the modern Greyhound is strikingly similar in appearance to an ancient breed of Sighthounds that goes back to the Egyptians and Celts. Dogs very similar to Greyhounds, domesticated hunters with long, slender bodies, appear in temple drawings from 6000 BC in the city of Catalhoyuk in present-day Turkey. I have no idea if I said that right. Somebody correct me. A 4000 BC funerary vase found in the area of modern Iran was decorated with images of dogs looking much like greyhounds. Since ancient artists tended to depict only images of religious or social significance to their societies, these dogs must have been fairly important to the people of those days. We do not know for certain that these dogs are forerunners of the modern greyhound. But as for this breed in the modern age, the champion sprinter of dogdom, the greyhound, is a gentle, noble, and sweet-tempered companion with an independent spirit. For thousands of years, these graceful hounds have been an object of fascination for artists, poets, and kings. Greyhounds are the essence of the dog breeder's credo, form follows function. From the narrow aerodynamic skull to the shock-absorbing pads of the feet. Shock-absorbing, Bolton. Greyhounds are perfectly constructed for high-speed pursuit. The lean beauty of the greyhound inverted S shape, created by the deep chest curving gently into the tightly tucked waist, has been an object of fascination for artists, poets, and kings for as long as human beings have called themselves civilized. Greyhounds are the template from which other coursing hounds have been struck. And what do we get when we get Bolton? We look at its body. It has a very similar shape. It's literally supposed to be one of the fastest dog Pokemon there are. It's an electric type. It's speedy. It has shock-absorbing pads of the feet. Wait, does actual Bolton have that? Hold on. Bolton can channel the electricity that it generates to its legs in order to keep them strong, boosting its strength and allowing it to run nonstop for 3 full days. It can easily run faster than 50 miles per hour at top speed. It serves as the enemy of Thievul. So, I mean, it makes sense considering Yamper evolves into Bolton, and I find it really cool that this, like, short-legged little, like, herding Pokemon turns into one of the oldest breeds, especially since Corgis might, or at least they are, related to one of the oldest oh gosh, I did it again, dog breeds. I almost called real-life dogs Pokemon. My life is just blending. But one of the oldest dog breeds known to man. So I love that little connection. I did not know about that connection until literally just now, and that's amazing. Also, the idea of a Pokemon using electricity to stimulate its muscles, that's really interesting. Does that get rid of lactic acid? Because that's what, like when you exercise and you don't have enough oxygen going to your muscles, like, you build up lactic acid. That's the whole idea. When you're running, when you're exercising in general, you build up lactic acid. The only way to get rid of that is, like, amino acids or through just enough oxygen. Otherwise, it's just going to build up anyway. And you recover through protein. Like, the whole idea of no pain, no gain isn't necessarily true. It's just a weird thing that people go by. Like, you want to try hard. You want to feel that you're putting in the effort, like, a lot of good effort if you want good growth, but, like, no pain, no gain. Dude, I will go to the gym, work my butt off, and the next day I will not feel a thing, because do you know how much I eat? You don't realize how much I eat. Anywho, I'm sending it back to past acrylic because my throat is dying, and I don't want to die. I just want to edit. I don't want to talk. I want to listen to Undertale music. See ya. Finally, we reached the one in the Pokédex to have lived with humans since ancient times. And, in reality, with its inspirations, this Pokemon may very well have actually been the first dog Pokemon to have ever been domesticated, both in games and its animal counterpart in real life. It has been mentioned once before, but this is based directly on it, as we have Rockruff and Lycanroc, and according to Jane Dogs, archaeological evidence suggests that around 3000 BC, medium-sized Spitz-like dogs began living in close proximity with humans. Fossil remains from this period have been found among remains of pile dwellers in many parts of Europe. For thousands of years, nomadic hunter-gatherer people had lived around the fringe of the Arctic land masses, following the movement of game. These Arctic people, sometimes called Inuit or Eskimos, isn't that an offensive term? Okay, yeah, it is seen as an offensive term. I am leaving this in purely for scientific and educational purposes. You use Inuit, not Eskimo. You might have grown up using it. I know I grew up using it, different times, so on and so forth. But it is mainly because the usage is now considered unacceptable by many or even most Alaska natives, largely since it is a colonial name imposed by non-indigenous people. In other words, people that are not your race or people or your nationality, whatever it is, calling you a different name to group you. Kind of how racism ends up working, unfortunately. These Arctic people, sometimes called Inuits, were natives of Greenland, Alaska, Canada, and eastern Russia. So already we're getting that this is a really old dog, ancient dog, and Rockruff is already said to be an ancient Pokemon, which we'll talk about more later. Let's continue our quotes. If you live in a region with harsh winter weather, then you may want to consider a Spitz breed. Many of these dogs were bred for life in Arctic climates and originated in Scandinavia, Russia, North America, and Asia, which that specific piece of it being in cold lands doesn't really line up. Because even if we try to look at Lycanroc, yeah, you can find it in Vast Pony Canyon, but these aren't cold places. Yeah, they're going to be colder because they're much higher on the mountain, but not high enough. They're not Mount Lanakila. So that's the only real difference. The word Spitz in German means pointed. Physically, most Spitz breeds have a wolf-like appearance that includes pointy, pricked ears, almond-shaped eyes, a heavy double coat, and a feathery tail carried over the back. All these features help keep them warm when temperatures drop, which we can see exemplified in all of the forms of Rockruff and Lycanroc. Spitz breeds are often loyal, intelligent, and affectionate, but they can also be independent and bold, not always suited to the novice owner. These active dogs have working backgrounds, and their tasks ranged from helping hunters find game, to hauling sleds with heavy loads, to herding animals like reindeer. Their thick coats also need regular grooming to keep the shedding at bay. And depending on which forms of Lycanroc we look at, that is exemplified further. It will not listen to novice trainers. It will do its own thing if you are not up to the task. So, let's look at each of these Pokemon to really tie together. Rockruff has an excellent sense of smell and will never forget an odor after smelling it once. There are tales of it reuniting with its trainer after becoming lost by following the faintest traces of scent. It has lived with humans since ancient times. Rockruff is often recommended as a good Pokemon for beginning trainers due to its friendly nature and ability to bond with trainers easily. However, Rockruff is said to be a challenging Pokemon to raise, to the point where some trainers abandon it due to being unable to handle it. That actually makes me angry. I hate the idea of abandoning an animal. That makes me upset. This Pokemon is very sociable and will greet others by rubbing them with the rocks around its neck. As it ages, Rockruff becomes wilder and more independent. Once it is close to evolving, it will begin to howl when the sun goes down. It has been said to leave its trainer's side and return once it has evolved. Despite becoming more vicious as it matures over time, Rockruff never forgets its master's kindness. While Rockruff travels in packs until it evolves, a persistent Pokemon, it will keep going until it outlasts foes that are even more powerful. Rockruff intimidates opponents by using the rocks on its neck to hit the ground. As mentioned in Rocking Clawmaw Kill, Rockruff trains itself by running around. It attacks foes the moment they flinch. It has been known to fight with Growlithe over territory, which all, in my head canon, all lines up incredibly well, considering Growlithe could potentially have been domesticated around the same time as Rockruff, despite the real-life origins of Growlithe. I mean, if you look again at Hisuian Growlithe and Rockruff, they both have rock typing attributed to them. Yes, I know Hisuian Growlithe and Arcanine are rock fire, you don't need to tell me. But the rock typing in general has often been associated with ancient creatures within the Pokemon world itself. And once again, depending on the type of Lycanroc, you get a mixture of loyalty. Midday form has a calm, collected, and cautious personality. In order to avoid needless fighting, the midday form prefers to live alone and does not form a pack with others of its kind. However, it is a fiercely loyal partner to trainers that accept it during its unruly stage. In battle, it darts past opponents while attacking them with the rocks on its mane. These swift movements leave many foes bewildered and backed into a corner. It always aims for the foe's weak spot using its fangs. I mean, yeah, you're gonna bite the neck. That's how you take something down. Broken fragments of its stone mane are considered good luck. We'll jump into its other two forms rather quickly with Midnight form, which is thrilled by battling and becomes more excited the stronger its opponents. This excitement is what causes its eyes to glow. The Midnight form is known to be reckless, along with extremely vicious temper. Its strategy consists of closing in on its opponent and encouraging attack, then countering with a powerful blow that knocks out its opponents. The full force of its headbutts can destroy giant boulders. Trainers that can draw out its power earn its trust, but it despises those that it disagrees with or who try to force it to fight. So, Sonic the Werehog as a dog lycanthrope thing. Not really. It just, I don't know, it just reminds me of that. I don't know why. It's a lycanthrope. They're werewolves, and I mean, there's so much furry stuff of it. And finally, the Dusk form Lycanroc shares traits from the previous two forms. Its stance, calm demeanor, and loyal nature are shared with the Midday form. However, it also shares the Midnight form's fighting spirit, including the red, glowing eyes at the moment of attack. Dusk form Lycanroc never barks, unlike its two other forms. Upon entering battle, Lycanroc will relentlessly drive its opponents into a corner. Due to only evolving at sunset, the Dusk form is considered the rarest of the three forms. The Dusk form of Lycanroc is rather difficult to train due to its temperamental nature, and because of this, it is considered the most troublesome of its three forms. So, again, it's very similar to what you would expect of the temperament of a wild animal to change depending on when it would be resting, getting ready to hunt, and also actually more specifically its genetics, because different temperaments are bred to calm the Pokemon, or I guess the Pokemon, but the dog or the creature, the animal down, or to make it more aggressive if that's what you really want. I mean, there are dogs that have lowered temperaments so much that, again, if they fart, they run away from themselves. I'm looking at you, Odie. Oh, it's been like, you are just really taking a good old nap today. While others, like the Doberman, are bred to be guardians. Or then you get, when people really bred pit bulls to make them have a more vicious temperament. There's one other that's even, like, that's actually banned in a ton of states in the United States because it was bred with an incredibly vicious temperament, and I can't remember which one it is. It's a big old dog, and it's related to the pit bull. But I digress, and while I did not draw Rockruff on the thumbnail, it is easily one of the cutest dog Pokemon of all time. Alolan Pokemon just don't miss. They are probably my highest rated Pokemon of all, because their designs are amazing. While we are done with our Pokemon, I wanted to show you the many dogs, or even just the many pets, of the community that were submitted for this video. They were submitted in the community Discord, which you can join. And that's where I asked for people to send some special pictures that they would like to share. And I'm going to not bawl my eyes out. I can control myself. Because I decided to do this video because you might have seen it, you might not have. I don't know. I had made posts this past month in October about one of my other dogs, Chi-Chi. And she was getting sick. She was having a lot of coughing. I took her to the vet. They gave us back with some medicine. I thought things were going to go well. And the next day, she was literally coughing all day, hacking up a lung. It was terrible. And I won't go into any more real incredible detail, just for your sake and my own, really. But she had ultimately a collapsing trachea, which is found to be common in small dogs, where basically the trachea, it's a muscle and everything. It's going to keep, there is no fixing it unless you put in a stent, and she was over 13, 14, 15 probably. So if you put her under, she probably wasn't waking back up anyway. So as somebody who has asthma, and while I have it well under control, I mean, I've been sick these last couple of days, and breathing has been difficult. I know what it feels like to almost pass away in your sleep due to a lack of oxygen and breathing, and that's not something I wanted for. That's not something I wanted for my dog. I didn't want that for her. And she's been with me since middle school, and now I am, over 10 years later, and this is what I'm doing with my life. And put her to sleep. And wasn't an easy decision. It's never easy. It'll never be easy. Know your pets. Know when it's time. The vet I went to say goodbye did a phenomenal job. And there's one more thing. Because, again, I'm not going to do a big old story, and I'm not going to just weep in front of you. That's not what I do. There's one more thing. You might have seen it behind me. You see this little gold card right there. Right there. That gold card. It's been here the whole video. And I'm very fortunate because my girlfriend actually bought this. And she wanted it to be a surprise, but she doesn't know anything about Pokemon. She doesn't really know anything about YouTube, but she supports me. And she wanted to try and keep it a surprise, but she couldn't because she didn't know how to fill it out. So we have this. It's a nice little full metal card of Chi-Chi. Full description and everything. I didn't even know how to fill it out. I mean, let me get you guys back in focus here. But I didn't even know how to fill it out. It was before the TCG Pokemon Pocket version came out, so I just did what I could. And that's probably where it's going to stay on display for a while. Unless I could get a full stand proper for it. Yeah, this video is dedicated to Chi-Chi. Without a doubt in my mind, it's dedicated to her. And she's the reason. While I may have had this idea previously, she is the reason I made this video. And I needed to. To anybody with recently lost companions, to anybody with companions currently, well, it doesn't necessarily get easier. Love them. Give them everything. You are all that they have, and they deserve the world. I have, with me, we have 2 dogs and 2 cats. Of course, Odie and Jaeger, but then we also have Whiskey and Martini, and shoot, they live like they are our own children, blood, and they're happy, and that's all that I can hope for. So, enough emotional, enough of that. I'm gonna give you guys a normal sign off. I'm gonna take a deep breath, and I thank you for watching. An extra thank you goes to the members of the channel that's here in our credits. And, as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't do anything I want to do. Don't do anything I would do. You know what? No, I'll give you one more. I'll give you one more. You know that saying? You know that saying I say? That literal saying that I say at the end of every video, at the end of every stream? Yeah, that's because I started saying, I say that to my dogs. I say that every day when I leave the house. I guess I don't leave the house as much today, or these days, because I work from home. But I say that saying every single day. I've said it for years now. And I first started saying it to my dogs. Not to anybody else, not on the channel, nothing. And then, literally a year and a couple months ago, like it hasn't even been 2 years yet, but a year ago, I lost Wolfie. I'm not going to get into that story. But since he's been gone, I've been saying that to you guys. And it's my way of keeping him alive in my heart. So, there you go. I'll leave that with you. Because, you know what? I just choked up while saying it. And I might as well explain why I choked up. So, as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't do anything I want to do. Don't do anything I would do. Please be nice to each other. I love you and I'll see you next time. Bye.